Well, welcome back, Alice. Thanks for joining me again today. Can you believe it's March already?
Absolutely not. I can't, the third month already in 2026 is just flying.
It is flying by. So our theme this month for in honoring St. Patrick's Day is luck, right? And we're going to talk today that it's not luck. It's called being prepared, having a great legal team on your side. And as always, we want to share a little bit of personal stuff before we jump right into it. So I want to share a cute little story that I have about St. Patrick's Day, and a little bit about my background too. I always say that all of us here in America, we are a melting pot of all different places around the world. And so if we're not directly immigrants, we're descendants of immigrants, unless you are 100% native blood. That is our story here in America. And that is why immigrants make America great, because we're all basically immigrants. So my mother's side of the family came from Scotland, Ireland. And so I grew up with a lot of that influence. In fact, from second grade through high school, I was in a Scottish bagpipe band and I learned all of the dances. I learned the Irish jig. I played the drums in the band and everything. It was a big part of my life. And so it was really special to me when I applied for law school and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And my law school acceptance letter came on St. Patrick's Day. I still remember the day. I cried and cried because I was so excited to get into law school. It was 2007, so nobody do the math on that, but it was a long time ago. I remember going out actually for Dairy Queen Blizzard, a mint Oreo Blizzard on St. Patrick's Day to celebrate that occasion. And so I think that it was a lucky day for me. I celebrate it every year because I love being an attorney. I started as an immigration legal assistant and I always wanted to become an attorney. And so getting into law school was the first step of that, as you know, and then the rest was history after that. But we're going to talk today. It's not just about luck. I actually don't really believe in luck because I think that so much of life is about being ready for the right opportunity. In fact, there's that saying, right, that luck really is just being prepared and having the opportunity come around. So if we're not ready for it, we're not going to be able to take advantage of it. And it's also, I think luck kind of just gives this impression that I don't have to do anything. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I believe that we have a little bit more control than that in the progress of our lives. What is your opinion about that?
Oh, I agree. I don't really believe in luck. I'm not really superstitious that much. I kind of feel like our lives are what we make of it. And you get what you put into things, And so I am a firm believer that we've got to put in the work, we've got to do the research. My grandfather used to tell me, a very wise guy, and we would go to him whenever we had issues and we would say, "Hey, I'm facing these two options. I don't really know what to do." And the best advice he gave me, 35, 40 years ago was, "Alice, do your research, use your brain, speak to wise people, get counsel, pray about it, do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable with your decision, but then just pull the trigger, like do it,
Mhm.
and then once you've done all those things, you can't really make a wrong decision. Will it always turn out the way you want? Maybe, maybe not, but you've put in what you need to, you've prepared, and you're ready to move forward." So I love that, but I do think that it's what we put into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that so many times we get kind of bogged down into like, should I do it? Should I not do it? We talk with a lot of our potential clients that they have an option, but they just get like so afraid of like, do I take this step? Do I not? What if it works out? What if it doesn't? And I love that advice of your grandfather, right? That just pull the trigger, like just take a step. It's very important to be decisive and to move forward. So I love that advice. Let's jump into it then. Our theme today, like we're saying, is it's not luck, it's being prepared and having a great legal team on your side. We're going to talk a lot about our team. You and I both love our team. We have an amazing team. In fact, they're all women right now. So we're going to give a shout out to March 8th, International Women's Day. It hasn't always been all women. I'm not opposed to hiring men, but I love it when it is all women because there's just a different energy. And we're all powerful, accomplished, smart, brilliant women, funny too. And, we like to have fun together. So it's a really, really fun team right now. Tell me, you've been with us actually almost a year now. Congratulations for your almost next week or 2 weeks will be your 1-year anniversary. Tell us what it's been like for you being on our team for the last year.
I I have told so many people I think it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Definitely one of my best decisions professionally. I've never been a member of an all women team before. Every workplace I've ever had has, been mixed, and so this has been a unique experience for me. But it's been great and I love it. We have an amazing group of ladies that are, like you said, very strong and wise and very smart and capable, and so it's been really nice to interact professionally on that level where you kind of feel like you speak the same language as somebody. There's also a lot of grace and understanding, but we just have a really, really great team that really cares about each other, but also really, really cares about our work and our clients, and so everybody is motivated to put their best efforts into what we're doing every day. So I just love it.
We also have several mothers on the team right now, and so it's really special. That's a special kind of energy that moms bring to the room of not just caring. I think we care a lot for our clients, and of course men do too. But I think that as women, we bring a lot of compassion to our clients. But we also kind of can come alongside and be like, you really need to, and kind of play that mother role of let me give you some advice, let me encourage you, let me point you in the right direction, let's help you pull that trigger of the next steps that you need to take. That's definitely the energy that I feel on our team right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I always want to, I tell my clients, I'm going to respect you enough to tell you the truth, good, bad, or ugly. But ultimately, it's your choice. You're the one in control. You're the one that makes the final decisions. But my job is to make sure they have all the information so that they can make informed decisions. Because let's be honest, right now in immigration, almost everything has some level of risk to it, right? And so, I'm a very risk averse person, right? Especially when it comes to making decisions for your family. These are big, big decisions. And so we want to be respectful of our clients, and what may be the right decision for one client, another client may choose a different route, and that's the best thing for them. And we're going to respect that and, make sure they feel confident in their decision and that it's the right decision for them and their family, and then move forward and follow their lead and help them reach their goals in the way that they feel comfortable with.
Right. And you already mentioned it. We're going to talk a lot today about the risks involved right now. Now more than ever, this is not a time to play things by ear, to leave it to chance or to luck. Like, well, I guess if it's, and I come from a spiritual background, but I hate it when people say, if it's God's will, I will, my case will be approved. Maybe God wants you to have the best representation possible. And maybe it's not just the prayers that are going to help win your case, although I'm not saying it hurts. But leaving it to chance or to luck right now is super dangerous. And we're going to give some examples of what can happen. But let's just pull it back even a step beyond that. I think what happens a lot of times is that people have a misunderstanding or underestimate the complexity and the difficulty of immigration because they think, well, it's just some paperwork. I just fill out some forms. I send it in. There's instructions on the website, and I know how to follow instructions, so I should be able to do this. Let's just talk for a second about complexity, because I've always heard that as far as legal areas go, there's tax law, which I don't do my own taxes. I don't know about you, but I don't do my own taxes because it's complicated. And then right under tax law is immigration law. So why is it that immigration law is so complicated?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And you're right, there's so many misconceptions. A lot of people, even other lawyers that don't practice immigration law, think of it as a form-based practice. And so those of us that only do immigration and have for decades, like us, right? We understand the complexities. It's not just like one agency and filling out a form. You're talking about multiple government agencies across several federal departments, um, that also has to take into consideration state and federal court district law. And so there's a lot of complexities that go around. And also the immigration code is one of the oldest codes that hasn't been actually replaced. All we do is we patchwork it, right? We just put little band-aids on it whenever we identify a really bad issue. We finally get Congress to move slower than molasses and put a band-aid on it to patch up one little bitty thing. Or there's a policy that's issued that shifts the way that the practice is. Or right now we're seeing executive orders. I mean, we've always seen executive orders, but right now the executive orders seem to really impact all across the board things that are different in ways we haven't seen, at least not in my 20 years in practice. And so, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. It is way beyond just filling out a form. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Mhm. Yes. In fact, I would argue currently under this administration, immigration law is more complicated than tax law because it's changing. It's changing daily, it's changing weekly. There was in the previous administration, even I think that there was basically a change every day. I can't remember the statistic, but it's just so much. And the average person, let alone the average attorney, really can't keep up with that rate of change and all of the different things that are the moving pieces. And there are actually people who are non-attorneys that try to help people with this, right? Where you're at in Texas, it's very common to have notaries or notarios. It's not so common here in Oregon, but all across the country, there are people who make a living doing taxes. Speaking of taxes, they fill out the tax forms for people. And then they also on the side, they're like, yes, I can help you fill out these forms. Talk to me about why that is not a great idea.
Oh my goodness gracious. We could do a whole podcast on my feelings about notarios here in Texas because, I have personal interaction with many of them. And for the most part, the people that I have met that do these services, they're really good people. And they're honestly and legitimately trying to help their community. Okay, these aren't bad people that are out there trying to take advantage. I mean, obviously there are some, but for the most part, these services are set up to try to help and offer things to their community, services that will help. And so these are not bad people, but we always have to remember that they are not lawyers. They have not been to law school. They do not have the training. They do not have the experience. They do not have the resources. And you can have the most well-intentioned, kind, nice person in the world still make a mistake that really screws you over, legally. And it breaks my heart when I see that because people have come to me over the years and be like, oh my gosh, it was my friend and she was so nice and she didn't charge me very much and I could do it. And, but now here we are. And now we're trying to dig ourselves out of a hole that we may or may not be able to dig ourselves out of. So yeah, here in Texas, I'm in Houston. We have notarios and professional services in every shopping center, it seems. They're everywhere. Um, and they represent that all they're doing is assisting with filling out paperwork. But in my opinion, and a lot of immigration attorneys' opinion, anytime you're filling out paperwork, you are making legal representations and you're interpreting what the form means and how it's legally relevant. And that is the unauthorized practice of law, which is a crime for which you can be prosecuted. So it's something that is very, very serious and can cause really big problems for people. And I just hate it when I see that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you're giving the benefit of the doubt. I think that there are a lot of bad people who are taking advantage. I think there's also attorneys who take advantage, unfortunately. I think, it's possible in any sector, but especially in the notario sector, like they get away with giving legal advice, and they're not attorneys. They haven't been trained. They're not held to the same standards that we are. They don't carry the same malpractice insurance that we do. And so you're not protected. You're not covered. Everybody makes a mistake, but if you have an attorney, like, you have the ability to then, basically sue your attorney. If you're working with a notario, like, they're like, sorry, I did my best. I'm not an attorney. You
Right.
get what you pay for. So good luck with that. Good luck with that. Yeah, scary.
I keep quoting my family's advice. I don't know what the deal is today. My dad quotes this phrase to me all the time. You get what you pay for, and you don't get what you don't pay for. And it's actually really good advice. So props to my dad.
This is so true. And that's, I think, it's challenging, right? Because good legal assistance is not cheap. Um, it just is what it is. And there's all kinds of reasons why it costs so much. And people argue about maybe it should be cheaper. And I think people think, well, if it's immigrants, it should be free. I would love to be able to do our work for free, right? But I have to pay my bills too. And law school was a pretty penny, and all of the insurance and the licensing fees and the software that we have to use, like, it's all very expensive. And so that all goes into the price of a case, but you do get what you pay for. You want to go with somebody who, may or may not do a good job, is definitely not legally trained, is definitely not able to, read the cases, read the policy, and understand the big picture. That's really risky. And right now in this administration, I think it's incredibly dangerous to take that kind of risk, right? Let's talk about, like, what
Oh,
are some
yeah.
of the consequences for making a mistake or filing the wrong thing under this administration.
Yeah, well, we all always remind our clients every form they sign for immigration is under penalty of perjury. There's a language above every signature block on every form that says you are signing, saying that everything is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, and you're not making any willful misrepresentations or anything like that, that it's under penalty of perjury. Perjury is a crime that can be prosecuted. It can result in large fines. It could even result in jail time for serious offenses. So, we always have to remember that there's penalties for perjury that can attach. We also have to remember that what we're looking at here for immigration is we're helping people remain in the United States. And a lot of times that means remaining with their families, remaining with their jobs, remaining in their communities. And, the cost of losing could be removing someone from the United States. That means removing them from their family, removing them from their jobs and employment and their communities. And, having to uproot from your established home is a big interruption in life. And so that consequence in and of itself is huge. And, I hear people say, oh, well, they're going back to the country they came from, but we got to remember a lot of our clients, a lot of immigrants that are filing these applications, they've been here in the United States for a really long time. Some of them since they were babies. They don't remember any country other than the United States. They don't speak any language other than English. They don't know anything other than their communities here. And so removing someone from the United States is a huge consequence in and of itself. And that's what's at risk in our cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know now that this administration is very quick to put someone into removal proceedings once an application is denied. And an application can be denied for any number of reasons. It could be denied because it wasn't prepared correctly. The evidence wasn't sufficient. One little box was marked the wrong thing. So it's so important to have a well-prepared application. And even with attorneys, I don't want to call out my colleagues, but so many of us, not us. We're not perfect either, but so many people. I just was in covering an interview for a colleague last week, and I was in an interview, and this was the first time in 15, almost 16 years that I actually had to stop an interview because I could see that this application had not been well enough prepared. And it was starting to it almost got to the point where there would be no return and it would have severe consequences. And so even having, an attorney at an interview, a lot of people sometimes go to an interview by themselves and they think, well, it's just, the packet was always already prepared. Everything was well done. The interview can go sideways very, very quickly. And you need to have someone who can watch it going sideways and stop it before it goes totally off track. And I was glad I was there with those clients because it was really, really important. But filing something that gets denied for any reason it's going to land you into removal proceedings. Once removal proceedings start, even though it can take a couple of years to wind through that slow process, like the end result of that is potentially leaving the country, like you're saying, and leaving a country where all of your family is here, your job, your home, your life, maybe you've been here for decades. That's a huge, huge consequence for, a small error. People used to explain immigration law actually as being in traffic court and having one of the penalties like a sentence of life or capital punishment of death. It's really that serious. And I know we're not talking about life or death, but literally like being deported can feel, I would think for many people, sometimes worse than death. Like it's bad.
Abby, I lost you there for a second.
Oh, I was just saying how bad it is to get deported.
Yes, agreed.
Did we
Agreed.
agree? Did we agree?
Yes. And we also have to remember that right now, ICBP, DHS generally, HSI, all of these acronyms, right? They have a very wide arrest and detention power right now. And we have to remember that, they can arrest people who are here without status or who maybe they think has violated status, their immigration status, and they can put you in a detention center. And, once you're in a detention center, you have limited ways on getting out, and that may or may not happen quickly, and it's usually not quickly. It's at least a couple of nights or a couple of weeks. And a couple of nights sitting in a detention center is, in and of itself, a pretty significant thing to have to go through for someone with no criminal history, right? Someone who's never violated, it doesn't have a criminal conviction, doesn't have, the benefits of being explained what the possible outcomes are, which is what happens in criminal court when you're facing jail, right? You get all these advisals and warnings and the right to an attorney and all of these protections. Immigration court does not provide those things. And so, the risks of detention in and of itself is a huge reason that, I mean, if it was me and my family, I would certainly want to spend the money up front to hire an attorney, right? And to make sure that we could check all the right boxes, like you said, make sure that we don't have any issues that are going to come back and bite us later.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And not just any attorney, right? Like you were saying, there are some attorneys who think that they can just do a little bit of immigration on the side. Maybe they do family law or criminal. And so then they have some clients through that that also have immigration issues. And so they start mixing those areas. We only do immigration law. And I believe it's because it's really that complicated. It's really that challenging to just stay on top of immigration. And that's why we've made the commitment to only do immigration law. And we're experienced at it, right? Like, of course, when I graduated law school in 2010, I thought I knew what I was doing, but law school doesn't really teach you what to do. Like experience and years and time and knowing, like I said, I had never been in an interview in 16 years. I had never seen an interview that I actually had to stop, but I knew when I needed to stop it. And that was from the experience of over the years of doing this. And so let's talk about what kinds of things should people be looking for when they're hiring an immigration law firm. They've decided they don't want to go with the notary. They've decided they don't want to do it on their own, but how do they know that they're hiring a good immigration firm that's really going to be prepared, as a great team backing them up? What kinds of things should be green flags? Let's talk about green flags that people are looking for in a good immigration firm.
That's a great question. I get that a lot. You really want to look for a lawyer or a firm that really focuses a large amount of their practice on immigration. And so, what you're doing is you're looking at their website. Do they have immigration listed as a practice area? You want to make sure that that's listed there. If the name of their firm is criminal defense, and then they just have immigration tucked away to the side, you might get lucky, you might find a good one. But, for me, why risk it? You want to focus on a law firm that either only does immigration or it's one of their top three areas of practice, because it is so complicated. We do see a lot of firms that do what we call crimmigration, where it's partly criminal, partly immigration, or family and immigration. Those two combinations we see a lot, and those can be well done. But if you're going to somebody that's a general practitioner, or they focus on wills and trusts and probate, or tax law, they're probably not the best fit for immigration. And I don't mean that to trash my colleagues. Like you said, I'm sure there's some exceptions to that rule. But as a general rule, for looking at for red or for green flags, what waves this might be a safe place, I'm looking for a law firm or an attorney that focuses on immigration and has some experience doing it. Maybe not fresh out of law school right now. This administration is not where we want to cut our teeth. So if it's a sole practitioner that doesn't serve with somebody else and they got out of law school last week, it might not be the best fit. I'm sure there's some good ones out there, but I would be looking for somebody that knows how to handle these cases, that's done it before, that has personal experience, that has connections, that knows, hey, I had a case like this, or I have this experience, or I know where to look for this answer. You're really looking for that knowledge, that expertise, and that experience.
Absolutely. And then I would add to those are great points. But I would add, I think it's important to look at the team. Who is backing up the attorney or the attorneys that are on that you're potentially hiring? Because you're not just hiring, the attorney. A lot of this work actually is just supervised by the attorneys. And so most of the individual contact that you have is with the support staff, with the rest of the team, the legal assistants, the paralegals. And so it's important to really evaluate your experience from start to finish. When you call, do they respond quickly? Are they friendly? Do you feel like your questions are being answered? Even before you sign a contract, like, are you happy with that experience? Do you feel comfortable? Because this is going to be a long-standing relationship. I've had cases go on. One case that's like over 10, 12 years at this point. I just talked to them this morning. We're still trying to finish up this case. And so it's a long relationship. You need to really make sure you're going to be with. I love that we have a medium-sized team right now. I love that I'm not the only attorney. That was not always the case before. And I was always worried, like, what would happen to my clients if I got sick or, needed to go on vacation or something. And so now having you and we're hoping to grow again, adding other attorneys to the firm. What that means as far as the experience for our clients is just that they can make sure they can know that their case will be quickly processed and handled, and the communication will go smoothly because of the team that backs us up. So talk a little bit more about that experience, because I know you also worked as a solo. And so how has that experience been for you, being on the team and having that?
Yeah, I definitely most recently came from being a solo practitioner. I was on my own here in Houston for many, many years and loved it, and just really loved the idea of joining a team. And one of my most favorite things about Molina, and I tell people about this all the time, is the client care coordinator. That is a unique position that I believe you created to fill a need. And, one of the most common complaints over the years that I have heard about immigration attorneys in general, not about me, but people who come to me because they've had bad experiences, right? I can never get a hold of my attorney. They never call me back. I never know what the status of my case is. I don't know what's going on. And there's this huge gap in communication. That is one of the most common concerns that I've heard over the years. And I don't know if it's like that with all types of law, or if it's unique to immigration. My experience is immigration, so that's what I'll speak to. But what you have done here at Molina is you've created a position called the Client Care Coordinator, or CCC. And each case, when you decide to hire Molina, you are assigned an attorney who's going to oversee your case, and you're going to be assigned a client care coordinator. And that person is going to be your point of contact with our law firm. You're going to have their phone number, you're going to have their email address, you're going to be able to reach them, talk to them, ask them questions. They are very responsive, they're very kind, they care about your case, and they know you. They build a relationship with you. And so they are your primary point of contacts. You're going to be able to reach them when you have questions. Most of the time, they can answer your questions and help direct you in the right way. Sometimes when legal advice is needed or legal direction, they'll elevate it to the attorney, and I get those notifications same day. And so then I'm able to get involved and answer questions when we need to. But what it does is it bridges that gap between the client and the attorney to where the client still feels like they know what's going on with their case. They still feel like they can ask questions that they're getting answers to within a reasonable period of time. But the attorney also isn't bogged down with having to, take 15 unexpected phone calls every hour, or, reply to 47 emails at the end of every day. And so it bridges that gap in such a successful way, in my experience here, that is really, really unique. And I love that about our team.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about you, Alice, and this is, I think, the next point that I wanted to make about what to look for in hiring an immigration firm, is that because immigration law is so complex, it can be really challenging to understand what the next steps are, what even the next maybe couple of steps could be, or a couple of options to choose from, in order to make an informed decision. And you have this way of breaking down really complex, really confusing concepts into something that's very easy to understand. And I really appreciate, like you said earlier, how you really take that time to talk with the clients, help them understand what the possible options are, and the pros and the cons of each one, and so that they can make a decision and move forward. If someone's working with an immigration attorney and they have no idea what they're doing, sometimes we, have a second opinion with, somebody wants a second opinion. They can't even describe what process they're even doing. That concerns me, because I get that it's complicated. I get that it's challenging to understand it, but that to me indicates that they haven't had a level of communication with their legal team to understand what the strategy is, what the next steps are, what the potential outcomes are, what the risks involved, the benefits. All of those things are really important. And so I would hope that prior to signing a contract, that people have had the opportunity to understand what their options options are, what the next steps are going to look like, and to even make some choices between a couple different options if there are options. So speak a little bit to our intake process and how you're actually overseeing that, and you help the intake team explain those things, breaking it down in those easy ways. But talk about that part of our process too.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. It was really nice. I try really hard to make things understandable because, like you said, it is so complex. Anybody who's had any written communication with me ever knows that I love bullet points. And so I love putting bullet points in things like step one, step two, step three. I really like that because I like my clients to be clear. I don't ever want somebody to come back to me or to us as a firm and say, but you didn't tell me that. It's like, I want to be clear. I want to make sure that we are on the same page, but I also want to make sure that you've had the opportunity to ask questions so that you really truly understand it. And so in our intake process, which is also unique and I really like it as well, is someone will call us, give us some information. They're going to talk to a specially trained person, not an attorney, an intake person who has been specially trained to gather certain types of information that are then forward and elevated to an attorney for review. And then the attorney is going to go over and look at that information to assess what options, if any, this person has to seek immigration relief. And then maybe they have, like you said, more than one option, or maybe they're calling us weighing between two different things. And so what we want to do is we want to help talk them through that. We want to say, okay, these are your options. These are the pros and cons if you go this way. These are the pros and cons that go that way. And then they get to decide and make an informed decision what's best for them and their family. Maybe they're looking at cost. Maybe they're looking at timelines. Maybe they're looking at specific goals, long-term or short-term. And those are things that are unique to each individual family. And so weighing those options in a clear way to where they truly understand what paths they may have is really invaluable. And so you want to find an attorney that's going to help you walk through that. That's not going to pressure you in 5 minutes to sign a contract or pay, this huge amount of money. You want to feel confident in your decision because, like you said, this can be a long-standing relationship. But you also want to make sure that you're finding an attorney that actually does have a written contract. You mentioned that a moment ago. I know we do that in every case, and most attorneys do and should. But I think people would be surprised to know that there's still a lot of practitioners out there that don't have contracts. And so then the client doesn't have anything to fall back on to say, hey, no, I paid you this amount of money for this particular service and then you have something to work off of. That's what our contracts do. It lays out the expectations that we have for our clients and that our clients should have for us. And it is a written signed document by both of us that we all get to keep and we can reference to go back to make sure we're all on the same page throughout our case. You really definitely want to have that and insist on a written contract that clarifies the terms of engagement between you and your lawyer.
Yep. Absolutely. Great points, Alice. I think we're going to end here. We've been talking today about the fact that it's not luck. Don't leave it to chance. This is March, St. Patrick's Day, all of the green. Shout out to Mar. She's also on our team. She did these backgrounds. She's been doing them every month for us. And I just love the creativity that she brings to the team. Speaking of our team, shout out to the team. I appreciate you and each person on our team. I know that our clients do as well. It makes the experience that much better. Please don't leave your immigration case to chance. Don't leave it to luck. Be prepared. Make sure that you have a great legal team on your side, whether that's us or someone else. I hope that you use the suggestions, the recommendations from this video to help you make the right choice for you and your family. Our mission here at Molina Immigration is that each immigrant and their family would arrive at a place of security and prosperity here in the U.S. I love the idea of the pot at the end of the rainbow. I really hope that if you are on your immigration journey, that you will be able to find that safety and security here in the U.S., whether it's with, actual gold or just the wealth of safety and security and family and love. That is my hope for you. And thank you for joining us. Stay tuned. We will be coming back at you next month with a whole new podcast. Thanks again for joining me, Alice. And I hope that you have a great day.
Thanks, Abby.